Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Track to Noise podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you all had a fantastic weekend. Club football returned this weekend with Ipswich Town hosting AFC Wrexham for the first time ever, actually, at Portman Road or any ground for that matter. To look back on this weekend's 0-0 result at Portman Road, I'm delighted to say I'm once again joined by Mr. Richard Popple. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm all right, Tom. It's quite early on a Sunday morning, so I think
It
we're
is.
both a bit sort of bleary-eyed, really.
I've got my tea with me.
Yeah, nice. I'm waiting for a coffee, which will help pep me up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need pepping up after this result for sure. We'll get into the game and all aspects of it and just where our heads at after this result. Obviously, it was international break this past week or so. We did have a fantastic episode the past week. Again, thanks to Phil and Callum from TWT and everyone who checked out. We really appreciate the support we got from the episode. It's really, really appreciated. But looking in international break, obviously, it's usually quite a bleak time, but I actually thought it was one of the few breaks with a bit of action. I think maybe because those qualifying games actually meant something rather than just the fillers we have midpoint. But some Town players involved in some big moments in that. We saw in the Ireland v Portugal game, Jack Taylor get involved with Ruben Diaz, a bit of a shove. I don't know if you saw that one after, I think they scored a goal, and Dara O'Shea very much being involved with Cristiano Ronaldo. Once again, it seems, I think a few years ago, they had a bit of a tussle that led to the red card as well. So that was interesting. And I think really leading into the game of the weekend, we saw George Hurst not starting this weekend. And to be honest, he didn't play against Denmark for Scotland, so I was a bit intrigued by his absence in the starting 11 against Wrexham. But I said to you guys in the podcast chat, he might have been a bit hungover, perhaps, because I imagine the Scotland players celebrated well into the night on Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe, but we also do have 3 games in basically 5 days, kind of thing, don't we? So yeah, I'm sure it could have been a long hangover, or it could have been just a bit of rest and rotation.
Yeah, very much. It's mad that George Hurst most likely will be going to the World Cup next year. We'll have a player at the World Cup, all things considered, unless an injury gets in the way. I know he's not a starter for Scotland, but that's kind of a big thing for him and everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a good carrot to dangle as well. Like if he has a good season for Town, he very much could be there and could be getting some game time.
And Taylor and O'Shea perspective, if they come in their playoffs, it's a big ask. I think they've got Italy, and yeah, it's difficult for them. But looking back at club football, as you said, it was back this weekend. Not the result we wanted, but we'll look into the game now. And first things first, as usual, is the starting lineup. 5 changes from the game against Swansea, as you said, Richard. I think bearing in mind with, as you said, Hull coming almost very soon on Tuesday night. We'll have a podcast on Wednesday for that as well. But just looking at the starting lineup for that, I feel like the back 4 and the midfield pairing is kind of what we're used to now with Furlong, O'Shea, Kipre, Davis, Taylor, Matasio. Then the front 4 was changed entirely. A mixture of what we might consider starters and some not so starters, shall we say. Philogene and Egley on the right being those starters, and Akpom at the 10, Azon up front. Some people online, Richard, I think to be fair, not considering, as you said, the immediate switch of games we've got coming up, obviously with it being December very soon, there's games almost every 2 or 3 days, to be honest, isn't there? But some people are very surprised that we're not starting any of the 4, or I don't think any of the 4 who did so well at Swansea. Obviously, Jack Clark's kind of a bench player at Portman Road and Philogene's a starter, but it was, I think, many surprised to see none of those making the 11 at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to predict his 11s, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be a massive amount of. I think, as you say, like there's a bit of consistency in the back line now. But saying that, I can imagine Greaves comes into the team potentially during the week, which I'm not entirely sure if I agree with. I don't think you change defenders really unless you absolutely have to. But yeah, I suppose maybe a few sort of surprise decisions. Chuba Akpom in the 10 and stuff. That seems to be something that he's trying to get going and get working, and it still isn't quite. Azon obviously scored his first goal for the club in the previous game, so maybe wanting to run with that confidence a little bit. But yeah, it's still a bit stuttery, the whole lineup business and everything else. But he has said he's going to rotate, and clearly is, and I think we can expect 4 or 5 changes basically most games.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the back 4 looked like I said, it wasn't the result we wanted, but Wrexham barely threatened Townsend the entire game. I think a positive takeaway from this and recent performances, I'd say. Obviously, a few sort of mistakes at the back leading to the goal against Swansea and Watford and stuff. But predominantly, I think we've started to look a bit more assured defensively recently, which is good, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And the lesser spotted clean sheet, is obviously a positive to take out of the game. And I think, Wrexham didn't show very much, but to be honest, they kind of came for a draw and they got what they wanted. They defended very well. Obviously, we'll get into the game a little bit, but they did defend very well themselves. And we didn't have much to do at the back. And what we did, it was dealt with pretty easily.
Yeah, well, this is something I was going to bring up at the end, but I kind of naturally comes into it now. McKenna's saying it's a game we should have won, but I feel it was plenty of games we've had at home this season that have just rung true to this, and you feel like it's a writing on the wall almost to an extent of how these games are going to go. I know, obviously, it's because so many sides have probably seen how these games have gone this season. I feel like Southampton maybe less so to an extent, but Derby and Watford and this one, they've all kind of followed the same story beat of us having, on paper, loads of shots on target, but if you actually watch the match, not really anything to threat for the most part. And then they may get a free counter and one or two chances, but predominantly that's in. It leads to a draw. It's a lot of drop points at home. I think the last 2 games have been 2 draws at home, and they feel like drop points rather than sort of a scrappy draw on both sides deserving of it.
Yeah, we have dropped quite a few points at home now, really. Obviously, the defeat to Charlton, and then I think 3 draws as well. It's weird. The away form seems to have flipped round, and hopefully that continues. Obviously, we've got 3 away games in a row.
Yeah.
But you can kind of tell at the start of the game, really, if we start fairly ponderously and don't really move the ball around, and this goes for any team really at home that's supposed to be on the front foot against a kind of like low block or whatever, then you kind of know the writing's on the wall a little bit, that it's going to be a tough afternoon. And it takes a bit of magic or something to unlock that door. And unfortunately, we don't. Philigine's obviously done it a few times, but nobody else has really done it that much at home. So we do become a little bit predictable, and I think McKenna, of course, is going to say that all the stats would point to the fact that we should win the game, but we didn't really create that much. Really, the best chance, obviously, of the game fell to McAteer towards the end, but apart from that, it was kind of pot shots from the edge of the box and deflections and things like that. We do not create a lot of clear cut chances in quite a few home games.
No, absolutely. I think there was some stats going around social media after the game on Saturday, and it was the collective amount of assists all our attacking players have got this season. I think it's 2, perhaps.
Is it 2?
I think
in 15 games.
Let me get this up again just to make sure, because I know it was a stat that was quite debated over the weekend. So I don't want to get it wrong, everyone. So bear with 1 second. So this season, 2 assists between 8 attacking players.
Wow!
Can you guess who those 2 are?
Jack Clark?
No.
Oh, no assist for Jack Clark.
No.
Philogene?
No, I'll put you out of your misery. So one was George Hurst, which I can't even remember, to be honest. Unless people are probably screaming at the headphones saying it was this goal, but Eggerly got one. He got that really early goal against QPR.
Oh yeah, against QPR,
yeah, a week or so ago. So they're the only 2, which is mad. Considering we've scored. Commentary team said during the Wrexham game, apart from Coventry, we're the highest scorers in the league, which doesn't really feel like it on some occasions. But
we've scored quite a few goals from long range, and a few set pieces as well fairly recently too. So we're not tearing teams apart. We're not really breaking them down that much. So that's a bit of a damning stat, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, hopefully it can change. We'll just get into the game a bit now. We'll go for the first half now, and we'll have a break following that. So really early stage of the game, I think chances were few and far between, as you said, considering how Wrexham shaped up. Early corner from O'Shea. I think set pieces wise, I think we're starting to prove going forward, and defensively we look quite assured there as well. And then Philogene and Davis were a really good pairing on the left, as usual. Then there was that around that 30-minute mark, which usually happens, I think, any home team really, if you don't really have a decent chance or manage to break a team down, the home fans start to get a bit frustrated, and it got very, very quiet. Like you could almost hear a pin drop on certain occasions, maybe because the weather was absolute rubbish.
Freezing.
Chocker block this weekend. I was actually supposed to go down to the game. I got some tickets to go and see it, but I couldn't go in the end. So Richard, I think some of your family went down, and my dad went down, but they managed to avoid the rain, which was good. But not the most exciting atmosphere. Then we had a pen shout around 40 minutes in on Akpom. There were some decisions the commentary team said that they could be overturned by VAR, but I don't think this was one. We'll get on some individuals. I think. Go on, sorry.
I think it's good defending, isn't it? Really, I mean, McLean actually had a really good game. He's one of the sort of villains of the piece, isn't he? That people sort of love to hate and stuff, and puts himself out there. But I think he had a great game.
Yeah.
And found himself in. But he was, he's playing midfield obviously, but he was tracking back a lot and making life very difficult for Town's kind of attacking runners.
Yeah, he's like just getting Wrexham a bit. He's such a perfect player to have in this league as they stepped up, and obviously he's been down. Probably he shouldn't have been in League One, let's be honest. But
No.
Very much we had players like that when we were in League One as well, weren't we? And that's why we came up so quickly when all that lot came in. But he's such a assured sort of player to have in that team, and so much experience. You can see why maybe age isn't on his side, and maybe fitness less so these days as well. But
yeah,
that's sort of just brutal nature you need in a championship to have. I think is a really helpful thing. That's why I don't think they're going to go down this season. Maybe like they can threaten a playoff spot if the league's so tight. Who knows? But they're very much.
I think they'll be closer to the playoffs, if not in the playoffs, than anywhere near problematic. I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
they're only 4 points off us. Oh no, sorry, 2 points off us. It's so tight in the middle portion of the league.
It really is. I mean, I think with them as well, it's they're sort of they're kind of considering their rise in recent years, and some people like to call it the Disney FC, the Disneyfication of the whole thing. I'm quite a big fan of Wrexham. I've got some family who live in that part of the world, and they can be quite divisive just from, I guess, the money that's come in and how quickly they've done it. But you still have to perform on the pitch. Like, you get all this money coming into the club, and obviously, the players they've had in leagues below and stuff haven't necessarily. Obviously, probably like Paul Mullin was in the National League, but he was a League One top goal scorer or League Two top goal scorer a year before, so they shouldn't have been where they were. And I think they're now, with the squad they have and the quality of it, is kind of where they should be, considering the way they're playing, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we go to the first break, actually, like I said, there's not much to really go from the game, but I mentioned Davis and Philogene having some fun and left at the start there. Leif Davis, actually, before the game on Friday, he was announced to sign a new contract. Obviously, he signed a 4-year extension last year in the Premier League, and we kind of thought that was maybe going to be, if he goes to we kind of whack a bit more of a sell-on clause for him with this new extension and stuff, but obviously going down, and he was one of the few players from those promotion campaigns not to leave the club, which we're very thankful for. And it seems like he's here to stay even longer. He says like his mission, like the club, is to get back to Premier League and stick around there. Really, really great news for Davis to sign an extension, wasn't it, on Friday until 2029, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that long since he signed the last contract.
No, it was last year.
Was it only last year? Right, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine, right, okay. No, it is good news. I think there was definitely a time. Sorry, I'm being blinded, but the sun has come out for the first time in about 3 days, and I'm being blinded. There was a time, definitely, I think, when we got to the Premier, obviously off the back of a record-breaking Championship assist season, and he was such a key player that year that there was thoughts, and I think there was, even from him, there was conversations. He was asked questions: "Will you go to another club?" and all that kind of stuff. And I think the Newcastle links at that point, he was okay talking about, and he was like, "I'd love to play for Newcastle one day," that kind of stuff. And I think because of, well, you look at Newcastle's left backs, they're pretty good, and I don't think he's going to get past Livramento, for example. So maybe reality hit a little bit with his kind of Premier League season. And don't get me wrong, he's probably our best player still, or certainly in the top sort of 2 or 3. And I think he will be better for that Premiership season, which was a little bit more difficult for him. I still think defensively he could be better, and he probably should be better at this point of his career, given that he's sort of 25. There are those lapses in concentration, but what he offers going forward is obviously massive. So, and the side is kind of built in the balance of it around his abilities. So yeah, it's great that he's committed, and he clearly loves. I think he's spoken about it quite a lot. He loves Suffolk and he loves the area and things like that. So it's great news.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like international break was a time period for the club to sort of make a few announcements and stuff. Obviously, we had the fan forum as well. I think a few days before the Wrexham game, and we had Mark Ashton's little tour of the of Popple Road and sort of the improvements that are going to be taking place and some that already have. Any takeaways from those? Have you managed to catch a couple of those during the break?
I haven't actually managed to catch those, but I imagine it's classic Ashton stuff.
Yeah. Two main highlights from the forum for me was a lot of the questions were directed to Ashton, saying like, thanks for coming to the club and all that sort of stuff, and asking Schultz, saying like, what was your thoughts when you hired him? And McKenna said like, if any other members of Mark's fan would like to ask any questions, that'd be great. Obviously,
I love it. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Well
Really
done, Kieran. Well done,
yeah.
Kieran.
And then the other one was near the last stages of the forum, just asking the Nunez transfer and how that went about, and him. Ashton
I
saying
saw the headline of that he would not sell to Norwich, but he's a PR man, Ashton.
Yeah.
Like he knows that fans love that kind of, or a lot of fans love that kind of stuff. So he's happy to play up to it, I think.
Yeah, it's a good way to get in the good books even more, isn't it? Of just saying like we wouldn't sell to rivals, but they did, and look where they are now. Anywho, well, we'll take a first break. We'll come back. We'll sort of look back more on the second half, look at some individuals from the game as well, and then we'll look slightly ahead. As I said, it's a short turnaround this week. We'll look ahead to tomorrow night's game against Hull City. So we'll see you guys in this. Welcome back to part 2 of Track to Noise. Myself and Richard looking back at Town's 0-0 draw against Wrexham this past weekend. Fairly stagnant game for the most part, Richard. Just looking into some more chances as we went on. Philogene had a really good shot in the second half. Okonkwo just kind of fell straight to him, to be honest. But really, the individual I want to highlight most from this game, and I think we talked about him there or thereabouts for the most part this season, but really, I thought this was a game where he had most involvement that kind of didn't really lead to much. And I think the backlash is starting to fester even more now. And unfortunately, it was Chuba Akpom in the 10. Had some chances here and there, kind of bundled it towards Okonkwo, which many considered might have been a handball by the Wrexham defender, leading to Okonkwo picking it up. But then there was a stage just on the hour mark where we had a really good chance for a counter-attack, and he was running through in the middle. In my opinion, a very clear chance to pass to Azon, who may not have scored, but I think the position he was in might have led to a better chance. But he just decided to take it on his right, immediately got blocked off, and immediate huge groans from the crowd there. He was subbed off, I think, around the 75th minute mark, which again for Nunez, which I think, again, many people were surprised how long he kept him on. I know we usually like to do those subs around the 60 and 70 minute mark, which I don't think we're ever going to change, but many were calling for his head to be taken off earlier.
Yeah.
Obviously a good player, golden boot winner. We've said all this stuff many times this season, but in that position, he's scored goals in that position before, but it's just not working, is it? And loses the ball a lot, whether it's in the middle of the park, and then going forward, it's just not offering much either, as he looks quite low on confidence.
He is quite low on confidence, and look, we need a lot more from him, and we need a lot more from that position. That position's been problematic all year. It doesn't matter who's in there, really. Schmodix maybe gives a bit more energy-wise, but the output was not great from him either. We've spoken about this before. It felt like an odd signing at the time. The guy is nearly 30. You feel as if he's had maybe the high point of his career to a certain extent. You don't want to write people off, but like he had a great season, season and a half at Middlesbrough, and it feels like that is nowhere near where he's at the moment. And I think, McKenna playing him for 75 minutes, I think that there is a sense of we need these players to step up. We need these players to contribute. So you've got to give them the opportunities to do that, and ripping them off after, 55, 60 minutes is not going to help anyone's confidence. So I don't really have a problem with him keeping him on because, anything can happen, a deflection, he gets a tap in for some, whatever. And all of a sudden the confidence is boosted. But that position doesn't look that natural to him. It's difficult to know who to play there, really, because no one's grabbing the mantle. I mean, Nunez, I think, has been the best, really. Yeah. And we've looked maybe the most balanced when we've had those three midfielders in there. And I expect he will actually be the 10 when we go to Hull on Tuesday. But then I don't 3 days later. They'll change it again 3 days later, and he'll probably be back to Akpom or maybe Azon, So it's difficult. I mean, I know they don't want to swap him around because he's just getting used to one position. But in terms of somebody who can actually turn on the ball and looks like he might have the vision long term to play that role, would be Egerle for me. But again, that's a big ask of somebody who is adapting to the league and is, physically trying to get up to speed and all the rest of it. And who's someone you want to kind of like bed in. So I understand why he wouldn't want to do that. And that is a lot of responsibility for the guy. But he has the attributes to actually do it. Whereas the players that they seem to play there, they don't have the best touch in the world, particularly. They certainly don't have the greatest vision, it feels like, and link-up play. And it's hurting us. And that's why, the stat you read earlier, 2 assists from the attacking players, the flow of it is just not happening. And it's all about that 10 position, really, because it links the whole thing together.
Yeah, it really does. You saw, like, when Nunez came on with 15 or 20 minutes or so left to play, just his immediate sort of desire to look up and play it for. I know we were kind of playing probably a lot more open and Wrexham sitting further back, so chances were created seemingly a bit easier to an extent, but it's just night and day in his sort of approach to that position and stuff. And it's just, maybe it's a bit of a slight on Akpom, but maybe it's not his preferred position. But the way we want to play right now, it's not working. I've seen people calling for Chapman to be recalled back from Pompey in January. People saying we need another striker coming. I don't think any striker is the issue, to be honest. I think Hurst and Asman just aren't getting as much. I know they haven't set the league alight. I mean, Hurst got five or so goals this season. I think it's pretty good considering we haven't seen the best of that much so far this season. I just don't think they're getting distribution from that position, and you can't rely on a young Norwegian lad who's still finding his feet and I think performing very well for the most part to be that main contributor. Maybe with Eggerly being on the right, in the middle. Sorry, I think it'd be a good move. Potentially could see it with Wes Burns seemingly coming back soon. That right side's going to get even more bloated with him and McAteer, all three of them fighting for a spot. Maybe there's a chance for him to come through. I don't know. But it's
but we're asking a lot, aren't we, for Burns? We saw what we saw with Bene. Started the season in the right position, and then 2 weeks later he was jettisoned out on loan. I think we know that Burns will get the role, as in understands the role and has performed it a lot before, but he's been out for a really long time, so you've no idea how he's going to come back, really.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those. I think that back return will be very romanticised considering his status at the club, but the performance it'll be a tough one to sort of know what we're going to get from him, what we expect from him, isn't it?
It is interesting because obviously we're at end of November now, and January will be in people's minds. And I kind of agree with you. It feels mad to think that we need more players, given how many players.
Forum said so. Yeah, so they're going to
get. I think the reason why we feel light, particularly in the forward positions, is because you're not getting any contributions from quite a few players. So unless that changes, it feels like, well, who are we bringing off the bench? If you're bringing off McAteer and Akpom in some games, or even Azon to a certain extent, you're like, well, is that really going to change? Is that going to move the needle, really? So it does feel like we're short, which seems kind of remarkable. So I get the Chaplin clamour. I mean, he's on the bench for Portsmouth. He's not exactly tearing it up for Portsmouth, but he knows the system and stuff and all the rest of it. So something needs to change in terms of getting some consistency into our attacking play. And I caveat all of that with the fact that we are 3 points off third place or whatever we are.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? How, as you said in the first half, how congested the league is. It was. I feel like the post we put out for the result for the game, we put it down as an opportunity missed, because if you look at the table this weekend, I think with the exception of Bristol and Coventry, who again they were 2-0, 2-1 down, but still managed to find a victory. Millwall, Hull, and Preston all lost. Stoke City lost, and Borough drew. It was a big opportunity missed. Obviously, we're going to Hull tomorrow evening, and we could potentially go above them if we get a victory there. Obviously, we had a great game in the promotion season a few years ago, but a bit of an opportunity to miss that one. Looking at some substitutes again, I don't really subscribe to this theory, considering how great he's been off the bench and stuff, and the few starts he's had has been really good. But people were calling for Jack Clark to start. He looks fantastic coming on again. Really, really up for it. He seemed like he got a lot of praise from McKenna at the fan forum midweek as well, just how well he's starting to find his feet. I think he's obviously much more suited at this level as well. But are you calling for him to be a starter? I'm not necessarily. I like his sort of role so far, and another game he might have got a goal. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's making an impact off the bench, so why change it, really?
Yeah.
Obviously he's going to start a few games because there's a necessity to give players a rest and all that sort of stuff. But I think if he's found a bit of a niche and it's working for him and us, then it makes sense to kind of keep it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he seems a bit more consistently kind of confident, doesn't he, when he comes on the pitch and stuff. And the roving role against a kind of tiring team, and Wrexham definitely were tiring towards the end of the game because they'd put a lot of effort into that defensive kind of, shutout. He looked like lively, and that he could create something. Unfortunately, on this occasion, it didn't happen. But I think that role certainly suits him.
Yeah, definitely. We did see not much of an impact from, as I said, Wrexham going forward didn't really offer much. We did see Nathan Broadhead return. Nice reception from Portman Road crowd. Obviously, some occasions you do get boos. Maybe there were some people in the crowd who did, but I highly doubt that, considering he's sort of the contribution made to the club. Good to see him back at Portman Road.
Well, there'll be some idiots that will boo him, yeah.
Yeah, but good to see him back at Portman Road. Nonetheless, looking to the latter stages of the game, you did touch on it, Richard, in the opening part of the show today, and really it was the biggest chance of the match. and it fell to a player who hasn't really had much of an impact at Town at all yet. Really, it's Casey McAteer with a really good ball in, I think, from Davis from the free kick, and then header just glanced over Kip Wren, and such a big chance. I'm so surprised he's just sort of scuffed it and it went across the face, and you kind of felt after that you're not going to get a better chance than that. And 0-0. I mean, he's another player, isn't he? Who, 0 assists, 0 goals. He's not a starter. I mean, he started a few games, I think, because he came in sort of early in the window to an extent before Egley. And as the season's gone on, Egley's definitely made that role his, and he's already been usurped by a player who's had a lot less championship experience than him.
It's a really bad bit of business, isn't it? Let's be honest. It felt like a bit of a weird signing. I actually was kind of. I thought he was actually a better player than he is, if I'm honest. When we saw him for Leicester in the promotion season, I thought he was actually okay that year and caused us a few issues in the games that we played. Maybe it's a confidence thing. You can keep saying that, but truthfully, he's not had any impact whatsoever. And you think that if Burns comes back to be any level close to where he was, McAteer will be third choice comfortably. And if Town can, I don't know, do you cut your losses in January? Do you send him out on loan somewhere and try and bring in a different option, because it just doesn't seem to work? And I think that the chance summed it up, because it didn't even look like he was going to be close to scoring. He just swung his boot at it. It was something that I'd do. Just no composure, no kind of technique really. And that's the problem. He doesn't really look like he's got a very good technique. The guy doesn't really control the ball very much. And I know this sounds harsh, but there comes a point where it's a bit like, well, you've had 15 games here or 10 games here or whatever, and the fundamentals don't look good enough, let alone the kind of the more nuanced stuff. So yeah, I feel a bit bad for the guy, but it just doesn't seem to be working at all.
Yeah, it's even more like, when you have because he came on around the 84th minute mark, so that's usually when you might think, oh, an impact sub, but just the from watching it at home, and I imagine many people feeling it in the ground, just the lack of sort of like, oh, he's coming on. Like, okay,
yeah,
is this the guy to see us home? It doesn't feel much confidence. It's a shame, because like you said, at Leicester, the season when we went up with them as well, it's fantastic. I think he scored against us as well.
He looked really good, and he plays better on the break, because it brings out the pace and the directness of him and stuff. So maybe he's better away from home than he is at home. And I'm sure as we say, it's congested. So over the next 3 games, he will have to have another opportunity, and fingers crossed he can take it. But at the moment, it does look like a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So yeah, as I said, ended 0-0 there. Another kind of result at home, which we didn't necessarily want. But it's like looking at Town's recent run of form. I think if we started the season with, what are we now? 6 games unbeaten. Five games unbeaten. Like, I think we would have taken that. We had a bit of a slow start to the season, but I think the results are there. You're going to get some draws every now and then this season. Hopefully, like I said, 3 games away from home. We've definitely seemed to have found our feet away from home recently with QPR and Swansea. So hopefully that can continue there. We obviously touched on the table there, Richard, but it's going to be a long season. I don't think really, apart from Coventry, who seemingly have found like the home of like 2011 Barcelona, everyone's very much within the pack of each other, aren't they? By the looks from Borough to, I don't know, Borough down to West Brom, perhaps in 17th. It's all very congested. Like 6 points between 3rd and 17th, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is mad. We're 15 games in. It's not a small sample size, is it really? It's basically a third of the season, pretty much. So yeah, it looks like we're all playing for second place, really. Yeah. Because if this week, is average, and we sort of get, I don't know, 4 points from the 3 away games, we could feasibly be about 15 points behind Coventry.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which I'm not sure if you're going to get that back. That feels like a big ask to get that back. So you're maybe playing for second spot, which look, we'd take it. But yeah, that's the carrot. We're 6 points off that, with obviously the game in hand and stuff. So if we have a good week, we could be right up there. Equally, we could be in the middle of the pack if it's kind of like more of the same, really. So it's all to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Hull tomorrow night, as I said. We had a crazy game there a few years ago, 3-3 draw just before the end of the season. Hull actually put a post out on their socials saying like last we played Ipswich Town on this day kind of post. And it was 3 players in that game we were against. Liam Delap, Jacob Greaves and Jaden Philogene were all against us in that game, and then Hill joined us season after. It's crazy how things concerned. They didn't have a very good result on the weekend. away's been a lot worse. Obviously, they'll be at home, but they lost against QPR, who we beat recently. So that fills me with some confidence going into it. But at home, their last 6 games, they've won 4, drawn 2. So home is very much where the heart is for them. Be a tough game, won't it, Hull? Obviously, going up north on a midweek match, you'd like to think maybe we found our feet a bit. Yeah, where's your head at?
Yeah, midweek away, Hull doesn't fill me with massive amounts of confidence. It's the type, it's a Preston kind of place or a Blackburn, yeah, following week. But we need to win these games. Really, we've got to buck that trend and hopefully build on the momentum that we seem to have a little bit away from home. I agree. The QPR result was quite surprising, really, because QPR kind of battered them. I think they had about 25 shots or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and obviously we found the QPR game relatively comfortable, apart from a little sort of 10-minute spell after they scored. But look, as we said at the start, there will be changes. We'll probably have another sort of 4 or 5 changes in the side. I can imagine Kiyust would come in.
Matasi was suspended, so
Matasi was suspended.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kiyust comes in. Maybe Nunes comes in at the 10 for Akpom. Do you see any other sort of changes?
No, I think they're the main 2. Potentially Hurst up top as well for Azon. Greaves for Kipre. I don't think you want to go too extravagant. Maybe a Jack Clark start as well.
But does Greaves for Kipre make sense? Like, what, you know what I mean? You've just got a clean sheet. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but it feels like following the pattern of the season that he will do it. But it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, my only sort of head out is that Kipre got a yellow. He didn't get suspended, but those yellows are building up ever so slightly. Greaves knows Hull quite well. Maybe some sort of emotion and motivation going into it might be a slight difference maker as well. Perhaps maybe play Virgin for that reason as well. I don't know, but
yeah.
Like I said, defensively, I think whether it's O'Shea and Greaves or O'Shea and Kipre, and obviously Furlong and Davis in the fullback positions, I feel like that back 4-5 sometimes is pretty assured now. To be honest, some dodgy mistakes here and there. You're going to have those regardless, but. Like, Wrexham didn't really offer anything on the weekend. No, Hull probably have a bit more firepower going forward than Wrexham do, and they'll be at home as well. But I like that back 4 now, to be honest. And whether it's Greaves or Kipre coming, I can't see a massive dip in quality for the most part. I'm not sure, but I think if we are to get changes of such a quick turnaround, and like I said, with him coming off a yellow card, I do expect Greaves to play. Yeah.
Do you think Jack Taylor continues to start in midfield?
I think so. Yeah. He played the 490, I think, again.
He came
off.
He came off for Kiyust, just before the end.
No, I mean he was again like not the most exciting game again, but he still managed to make a little bit of an impact and just in that position now, which we've talked about him for so long, having not really known how to perform in that position where he wants to go forward too much or go back too much. You kind of don't see him during the match, which is what you want from that part of the field, really, and just gets the ball when he's supposed to, plays it forward when he's supposed to, just looks really, really good and had a great, I think, international break as well. We mentioned at the top of the show of getting sort of barging of Diaz and all that sort of stuff. I think he's having a good season personally, whether the team on is a different question, but yeah, I expect to see him start if he's fully fit.
Yeah, and he's also got a little bit of bite, which I think
we need.
Maybe has been missing a little bit. I think Matasiwa obviously brings that, judging by the amount of yellow cards he gets as well. But and him and Philogene, there was no arguments this time.
No, not this time. Yeah.
Put that to bed. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put the show to bed now. Actually, that comes to the end of our preview of Wrexham. We'll be back on Wednesday to look back on Town's game against Hull. Town are playing Oxford on Friday, but we'll be back on the Monday after that with the usual format. And then international break coming soon. Festive period fixtures coming soon. We'll have a lot more episodes throughout December as well. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's show. If you want to head over to our socials, YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, or give us a follow or rating, wherever you get the Track Times podcast. We really do appreciate that. We'll see you on Wednesday for our review of Town's game against Hull City.